to see who has unlimited potential. Brought to you by Sprint, and certainly Giannis Antetokounmpo would fit that mold. An 18-year-old player, has some size, loves Kevin Durant, friend for sure here in Antetokounmpo.
What we have, Reese, is the youngest player in the draft and the most mysterious. This young man did not leave the country of Greece until 3 weeks ago when he played in a tournament in Italy. And he was fortunate because at that tournament, all 30 NBA teams could see him and not worry about the YouTube videos. He's got a Kevin Durant body. He handles the ball like a point forward. He's got a great feel for the game, and he's a great kid with a high motor. But this is a pick that is certainly going to be a future pick. Think of this young man, Milwaukee Buck fans, as a McDonald's All-American that needs a development program. We're looking down the road, but a great talent with a great feel for the game. Can you put him in an NBA game right now? You probably cannot. But in the long-term picture, this kid has as much upside as most anybody in this draft. Handles the ball well, a willing passer, and a young man that I think is going to get better and better. John Hammond and the Bucks have got to have a good development plan for this young man because he's going to need some strength, some development in terms of a player, but they've got a guy for the future. A lot of teams liked him. Who was going to take him first? Milwaukee at 15.
And Antetokounmpo was the guy who has no interest in being stashed, and given what we just talked about with the Bucks, they're not going to do that. You're going to have to put him in an NBA game, aren't they?
I studied him extensively on YouTube, and I thought he looked like a Greek Paul George. Now, he was going against an 8th grade CYO team, but I was still really impressed by some of the stuff he was doing. And he's got giant hands. He grew 3 inches in the last 12 months. Fran said if he was like a high school All-American, he would have been one of the top 5 guys coming into college. I like the pick. Unfortunately for Milwaukee, that's a reset button. Now they're rebuilding.
But also in a market like Milwaukee, you must draft well or trade for players while they're already under contract, because normally they don't attract free agents and they don't normally overpay to get free agents.
Like Indiana.
These are the type of picks that you hope work out if you're a Bucks fan.
How do you develop them? Do you put them down in the D-League, or do you keep them on the big roster and play them?
You got to keep them on the big roster at this point. Allow them to work with your guys on a daily basis, practice with your team, travel with your team, get used to the NBA experience.
And Jalen has the key point here. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jalen says he's going to be called Bo. That's what his teammates will call him.
Not
he can get rid of all the other letters.
Absolutely.
Just Bo from now on.
Absolutely. Get those bags, Bo.
Yeah.
It might even work better than Giannis. It's one fewer silver. Now the Celtics.
Maybe a bit of a surprise, at least to the crowd here at WAMU Theater at Madison Square Garden. But the Thunder, they liked James Harden all along. They considered him the most polished player in the draft. The sophomore guard from Arizona State, he was a first-team AP All-American. And this guy who's battled asthma since he was a child. Not a whole lot of people know about him, Jay Billis, but what does he give you?
Well, he's a lefty, Stu, and he's an all-around solid player. He's very physical. He seeks out contact when he drives into the lane, and he simply knows how to play. I think a lot of people thought he could be like a Brandon Roy-type player in this draft. Yeah, he's very good off the bounce. He's efficient with his offensive possessions, and he's a good driver. And he can get to the free throw line. He doesn't force things. You know, he's a decent shooter, but a little bit limited. I think he can improve his mid-range game and his pull-up game, and he can also improve his handle. He didn't finish up the season particularly well, but I think he's got an awful lot of potential. You know, he puts his head down and he goes to work every day in practice. He has been well coached by Herb Sendek. I think that James Harden is going to be a very good player. It's not a shock to see him go to Oklahoma City. We talked about, Sam Presti valuing all-around good players, and this guy is an all-around solid player.
Guys, you guys talked about the youth, but Jeff, you also like the talent that Oklahoma City has. Can a lot of young talent hurt or help for the immediate future?
Well, I think what they can do is they play together, and then it gives Sam Presti the ability to evaluate what they need to do in future years. You can trade some of those guys to plug in some holes. So I don't think it's wrong when you're building to try to play all young players, as long as they have high basketball IQ and high basketball character.
And the reason why I like it is because they have guys that love to play the game of basketball. You watch them in the offseason, they play together, they work hard. Quality guys, young talent doesn't matter.
All right, let's take a look at
Westbrook from UCLA. In my opinion, at the point guard position, he's the best defensive guard in this draft. This is a guy that can pick up full court defensively, really change a game on both ends of the floor. From an offensive standpoint, he can run the point guard position. He can get into the middle, distribute the basketball. He has great size and athleticism to finish inside the lane. The one area that he's definitely going to have to work on is outside jump shot, particularly in a pick and roll situation and all the way out to the three-point line. But when you look at the Seattle Supersonics, their number one goal was to get a point guard. They got a great point guard out of UCLA in Russell Westbrook.
Great range. You know, if you cut him off at 23 feet, he'll move out to 25. If you cut him off at 25, he can take it out to 27. He's really deep range. It goes beyond NBA range. And I think one of the things that we really love about him is he just knows how to play. He's not only a gifted scorer, but he knows how to get shots off. He's got a really quick release. He can stop on a dime, and he's got a great understanding of the game. And he loves to play. And that's something that I don't think can be understated. The guy that loves to play is going to be in the gym all the time. And that's the way Stephen Curry is. He's an unusually good passer. He can anticipate defensively. He's not the type of player that's a superior athlete that can stay in front of super quick players, but he uses his craftiness. He's going to have to improve his decision making a little bit with the ball in his hands, and his shot selection has got to get a little bit better. But last year with Davidson, a bad shot for Stephen Curry was usually better than a good shot for somebody else on his team, and he had to take some chances. I think his decisions will get much better as he goes on and plays more point guard in the NBA.
Kevin Durant from the University of Texas, the most complete perimeter big man since Kevin Garnett. He's got every skill that you want in a player. He can shoot it, he can post, he can rebound, he's got it all, and he's an absolute scoring machine. Faced every defense you can possibly imagine, still scored about 26 points per game, was player of the year, consensus the first ever as a freshman. And his skill set and size fits the current NBA game of speed and skill. He's got it all. And in another year, Fred and Greg, he would have been the first pick. But because Greg Oden's in this draft, the prototype center that's going to be a championship level player, I think he's going to be the second pick.
Tremendous success. The second player from high school selected first overall, Kwame Brown of the Washington Wizards, doing it a couple of years ago. High school games on national TV, and what has been the most impressive to me is how he's handled the unprecedented hype.
Well, you know what's amazing to me is we are actually going to see LeBron James jerseys. We're going to see Cleveland Cavalier jerseys in Montana, in LA, in New York, in Chicago. And his impact is not just going to be on the court. It's going to be felt all across the landscape of America.
You know, you got to love this guy, too, in terms of his poise and the way he's really handled himself through all this adversity. I mean, this is a great moment for him and his family, obviously, but also for the city of Cleveland.
The 6'2", 196-pound guard out of Memphis. Jay, you've been high on this guy the entire time.
Well, first two, he's a winner. We talked about winning 38 games, getting the NCAA championship game last year, but he is not used to losing. And one of the, I thought, the really neat things about Derrick Rose last year is his coach, John Calipari, had to talk him into being more assertive. He was deferring to his older teammates. He's a world-class athlete, a prototype point guard in the NBA. He's got great strength, unbelievable in transition. I really like his ability to get into the lane, whether in half-court or full-court situation, absorb a bump, and creatively finish with strength and athleticism. I mean, he can just get up and finish. He can dunk with his elbows when they throw him a lob. I think he's the real thing. He's not a consistent shooter, Jeff, but I think he's going to get that because his shot mechanics are good, and he's such a great athlete.
And I think as importantly, Jay, is that he establishes some ball pressure defensively. When you're able to cut off penetration, you set the tone for the entire team. So to me, it's not just about his offense. It's about the ability to contain dribble penetration.
Well, to me, it's about a tough kid. When you talk about the Chicago Bulls, you watch them last year. This was a fragile team mentally. Here's a guy with his bounce and his swagger. He's going to send a message during tough times. I'm going to put you on your back. Just follow my lead, guys.
Well, his teammates followed his lead when he was in high school.